In this episode of Leaning In, we explore in the context of our own lives and the immediacy of the collective moment what it means to be in relationship with a sense of destabilization, exploring both the discomfort, resistance, and possibility inherent in it. How to explore the experience of embodied agitation or anxiousness that we are experiencing and we hear other people giving voice to right now. Ways that we experience this collective moment is asking us to continue to dismantle the illusion of separation and the paradigm of individualism, as well as ways that group engagement enhances our capacity to ameliorate our wounds, conditioned limitations, and fears, while also amplifying our ability to actualize the power of our connections to ourselves, to one another, of our play, joy, and creativity in order to realize enlivening possibilities and become more authentically ourselves, bringing our full selves forward to meet this moment. Please join us in this conversation by sharing the thoughts, experiences, and feelings that this exploration stirs in you.
Here we are. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Tanya. How are you?
I am good. I'm happy to be back in this leaning in space that we share. It's been a while. We've sort of been on hiatus from the podcast, though not from each other and definitely not from life. There's been many things weaving for both of us the past 6 7 months or so since we last dropped in with an episode. So, do you want to share a bit, Jessica, about where you've been, what's been up, what's been happening for you?
Yeah, I mean, it really has. I know we were in the flow of a summer series, and then yeah, life just really kicked into high gear. My older daughter, our eldest daughter, announced that she was having a baby. She was with child, and that was a really big piece of life. To wrap our heads and our hearts around. And thankfully, to the space and the work that we do and the modalities that we share together and practice here, I was able to really resource myself to navigate with and through that, and then continue to navigate through launching our younger daughter, Mercy, off to Tokyo for her first semester at university. And then I launched myself. I had a little free bird party, created a little ceremony in the backyard with some beautiful sisters, soul sisters from DC, into the South Hams in South Devon for a land-based, community-based rewilding training, wanting to kind of bring on board for myself, as you've heard me in this space talk about, for me, collective healing includes all beings, includes land. It happens in place, in relationship with all we are among. And I felt like I wanted to have an experience of what are the aligned methods for nature recovery, and for land-based healing, that would be reflective of, kind of the orientation and values, way of being in relationship, with the world and with ourselves and the dilemma that we're facing, and that we've created as humans. What are the practices that are happening that align with that are land-based? And it was a beautiful experience. I was closer to you, and then was still preparing to become a grandmother, a Mooney, which is the name that has arisen quite spontaneously and sweetly among, between Ella, it was her, yeah, so to Bodhi, who was born 8 weeks early and very quickly, and prematurely when you had come to visit me from London. And then you supported me and we did work and we dropped in together those few days. And then I flew off to Sarasota, Florida to support, and then flew back to Devon to wrap up and complete really this training community experience, and then back here for solstice and holiday season, and got to meet Bodhi, who came home from the hospital New Year's Day. So, which that will forever be known as Bodhi Homecoming Day for the Lusty family. Yeah, and then making plans to meet you in Goa in a couple of weeks for your retreat there, which you've been leading for over 9 years in the same spot, Ashiana, which I'm very excited about. And then the serendipity of leaving Devon and feeling like there's still something to explore there, and finding a woman at a place called High Nature there that has a well-being, nature connection, nature recovery, permaculture, camping, programming, food, growing and sharing, which I love. That I was felt like maybe this is the invitation back to Devon to do some volunteering there next summer. And then lo and behold, she's going to be where we will be in Goa in March. So kind of bridging what's been going on with what's up and coming. And then we'll be looking forward to our retreat together in July, so or June, late June, like bridging June, July in Cara Creek, Portugal. So lots happening, and then of course, we're all in this experience together of the change of administration in the U.S. and coming back to DC and immersing myself in community organizing, around environmental justice issues here, and picking up on a project. I produced a film to support the electrification movement here and creating some opportunities to share that. So yeah, just the collective, the personal, the familial, and I guess that's a brief, maybe not so brief, but like pretty complete brief catch up from me. About for you, what's been weaving?
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to when we were last connected in this way. Obviously, as Jessica shared, we've connected we keep connecting throughout pretty much on a daily basis in one way or another. But in this space, and it's interesting because you speak about, so beautiful the time that you've had with really connecting with the land and community and outwards in that sense, and this sort of being in a very living kind of interrelationship with nature and the land, and how we can come into better relationship. And I'm just thinking back, so over this period that we haven't been recording episodes, it's like I've been weaving the inner landscapes more and more. I completed my psychodynamic coaching training, and I'm really sort of looking to, or have been bringing that work forward more and more. And I really loved working one to one with people, and going into the depths with those who are really like curious and wanting to show up and kind of like, oh, okay, I'm ready, and courageous. There is so much courage and vulnerability, so sort of go hand in hand. And I'm continuously in awe with people who are kind of like showing up fully in that way. So that's really been a lot of like my orientation. And I just launched a program where I'm trying to do my best to bring together all the strands of what's helped me more than anything, over the past 20 to 30 years or so, in sort of in my growth, as well as this, the sense of like becoming more me. I sort of, I don't, life doesn't necessarily get easier, but somehow I can still say that even looking back a few years, like I like myself more now. And I think it's more about just like coming into a fuller alignment. So I put together a program which is both online and and a group experience and individual sessions, which is called The Journey, which I'm very excited about. We've just begun that, and and sitting together in circle is just such a powerful thing and so needed, I feel, in these times. And it's interesting as well because you speak to, obviously in your family, such a huge like new threshold of a new beginning and birth, and that's extraordinary. For me, conversely, last year felt like it was a lot about loss. I lost my father at the beginning of the year, and there were other losses along the way as well. But I'm also really feeling into like the tarot, the death card in the tarot, which is so much about a sort of shedding and a transformation, and things things you have to let go of, things for new things to emerge and a new way of being to emerge. And often the death card can be about coming into greater authenticity. And um, just interesting to sort of look back actually in this moment and kind of think, oh yeah, there was a lot of loss, there was a lot of heartache and difficulty, as can be after some within families after somebody passes. We know this, that old stuff comes to the surface when we're all raw in grief, and we're but actually also a lot of healing has happened in that time, which I'm incredibly grateful for. So yeah, a lot. Life keeps being a lot, and I feel like everybody I'm talking to, there's a lot of shifts, and like you sort of alluded to, Jessica, this like I think none of us, even this side of the pond, can help but feel destabilized by the changing political climate. And we were talking as we came together before we started recording about as well, like I think both of us are feeling some sort of like agitation at the moment, and this kind of like unsettled feeling. I don't know if you want to go into that a bit more, how that is for you.
Yeah, I really appreciate, and I just am hooked on this word for a second, the destabilization, because there is so much that we resist about being destabilized. I have resisted. I have observed within my own family and my own context. We will sustain what is inauthentic, what is uncomfortable, what is not aligned in order to avoid the destabilization, right? And it is uncomfortable and it is scary. And I mean, I think I commented when we were just chatting before we came on this, that one of the things that is so discomforting about the Trump administration's approach to governance so far is not only, the nature of the policies that he's seems to be behind, even though he's not really laying out policy super clearly, but it's the procedural disregard, the disregard for procedure, the desire to create his own, procedures and have that just be accepted by the other members of different branches of government, right? And I was saying, that it's the procedural um, strategy that he's taking that makes me most uncomfortable, and it is it is destabilizing. And I think that the question is how do we see destabilization and hold ourselves in the discomfort of it, explore what the discomfort is around it, whether it's happening in our nation's, governing, systems, or whether it's happening in the systems of our household, our communities, our families. And, that track of which, the work that we do is to be in relationship with our own discomfort around the destabilization and what that reveals, both in like what we need to tend to and care for. And it's so much as, yeah, I can feel that that's going to like bring, it's a generative kind of moment for me to have you bring that word in, um, because it's so much of what I kind of described and touched in on, in what's happened for me in the last 6 to 7 months. So many of those pieces have involved, encountering, being forced to encounter a destabilization of one kind or another. And yeah, as I described to you, I've been having this really embodied, and I don't know if other people who are listening are kind of feeling this. And another aspect of, the work that we've been doing, and I think one of the reasons why the group work is so powerful is that it gives us a place where we can be with the both andness of what is ours and what is mine and what is ours, what is the personal and what is the collective, and the recognition that they're intertwined, and what happens when we kind of are able to both distinguish sort of between the two. Like, I've been asking myself in the last couple of days, gosh, is this embodied anxiety that I'm feeling, is this mine? Right? Is this really coming from my personal stuff? Or is it a collective shared experience that's coming from um, the discomfort with, the what's coming out of, the Trump administration on the, being positioned not only in the US, but in Washington, D.C., right? Where so much of this is unfolding, and that there are literally bodies around me, in proximity, who are really immediately impacted and affected. And there are all across communities in the US, right? Because the kinds of policy shifts that he is put into place with some of these executive orders affect people in all communities. There's no doubt about that. But there's a way that people in DC are being asked to respond to this. And there's a lot of immediate, uncertainty. People in my organizing community who work in federal government agencies trying to do good work from the inside, and also in these organizations volunteering on the outside, who don't know if their positions or their departments will, continue to exist. So yeah. And
Can I
I
jump in there and just like highlight something around that? Because this thing about like, is it around me? Is it collective versus like, is it personal? And I think this is where like doing this deeper work is so valuable, because I think in both of those, it's quite easy to bypass. So there, it's quite, it can be a tendency to sort of minimize your own personal experience with the kind of, oh, well, everybody's feeling it, aren't they? Sort of thing. We go through a pandemic, oh, but everybody's feeling it. And, and then kind of go, okay, so I don't have to go into it, and what my personal experience is. Or the sort of converse where it's like, you take it all on board and you think it's, it's something wrong with me, or, why am I, so strongly, strung out on this, or it feels overwhelming and you're not getting the support, and or this sort of idea of the collective being able to understand you or reflect back your experience. And and like you say many times, it's like it's both, and it's not an either or experience, but usually everything is weaving. But it can be really helpful both in how we tend to ourselves and how we tend to each other, to recognize sort of what is what, and then recognize, oh, this is something I'm carrying from my past, or this is actually something that's happening around me, which is uncomfortable, and yeah, and how, and also then if we start to have an understanding of all of that, we can also get an understanding of how to support ourselves in it and what to
Yeah.
bring forth through it, rather than kind of get stuck right in it, stuck in the mud, as we do
Yeah.
so often. But yeah.
Get stuck in the mud is what I heard. The second piece you described is like sort of some of the tendencies, right? To take it all on, and then, like, or to, you know, move faster, to move past it, to, like, we're all experiencing it. So let's just keep focused on what we're doing, and you know what I mean? And, like, barrel through, kind of, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think those are, yeah.
Would you want to like drop in for a moment, and we can just sort of maybe explore what it looks like to feel into what's at play
Sure.
right now? Yeah. So just take a moment to ground. And if you're listening in, you might just, if it's safe for you to do so, to take a moment to stop, possibly close your eyes as you can, as we move through the next few moments, you might want to feel into, you're really invited to feel into your own experience as well with what is coming up, if you're in a place where you can, and a moment when you can do that. So, Jessica, just feel yourself settle into your body and notice, without any changing of your breath, just noticing how it's flowing inside of you and out of you. So in this practice, what we often work with is these sentence stems or incomplete sentences. I'll start the guidance, and then Jessica will just complete with whatever arises. And there is no expectation for it to be in any which way. It can be one word, it can be many words, it can even come into movement. So it's just very invitational to see what's kind of underneath the surface. As I sit here, what I'm experiencing in this moment is
Um, well, you saw I just had like a big inhale and just a sigh out, not really a sigh, but just I'm experiencing a lot of like a gripping. Kind of the image that's coming is sort of like, where it's almost like a startled feeling, an anticipatory feeling. I feel like almost my skin, layer of my skin tissues contracting, a tightness around my heart center, like around my sternum. And my breath was like, before that sigh, I was noticing it was just like a in out, kind of short, pretty quick breathing.
where I sense this gripping is coming from is
It's almost like bracing. I think it's like that's the thing. It's like a bracing myself.
mm, what I'm bracing myself against is
It's like against what's coming. I think it definitely has to do with the Trump administration and sort of this first rollout. It's like it's like watching this first wave and then being like, oh my God, what's next?
mhm, how much energy this bracing is taking out of me is
Yeah, it's got an energy, it's energy consumptive. I feel that sense of like I think that's what that sigh was all about. It's like when you just asked that first question, and then I had it again when you asked how much energy it was taking. It was like this spontaneous sigh,
mm,
like inhale and then, a deep like I think this recognition that there is this expenditure of energy to hold myself against this concern around what's coming. And I feel this spontaneous sort of sense now coming from the inside of just like there's a part of me that is moving to open this up, this bracing up. Um,
What this opening movement is doing is
it feels like a almost like, you know, if you have a fungi, right, that kind of like is kind of opening to the surface, you know, when you see like in fast motion picture, it's that kind of like, I feel like
Mhm.
there's a response that's ripe, that's what's coming, that's ripe, that's sort of like being held in a little bit by this bracing. And I feel there's sort of an invitation here to kind of sit with this sensation, these two sensations a little more, you know, beyond this moment that we have here.
Yeah.
But to let them, you know, let them really be at play in my system, and to sort of continue to kind of cultivate this response forward, you know, in a way that's creating space for it.
Yeah.
I get a sense that if I were to just kind of keep going about business as usual, that I would exist within this kind of bracing, um, anticipatory anxiety sort of moving around within that, and that this sort of deeper response would not have the space to come forward.
Yeah. So just one more sentence. My intuitive sense of being able to bring forth this mushrooming kind of opening and spaciousness is
I feel it present. I feel a shift, you know, in my whole system now. I mean, I still feel the sensations of the bracing, but there is this embodied sense of yes, you know, like
mm-hmm,
a possibility, and the intuitive, you know, accepting of like that, the invitation that my system just offered of creating the space, you know,
mm,
and the allowing and the attending is the intuitive way forward.
thank you. Beautiful. Just let yourself take a few breaths and maybe move your body a little if you've been listening and sort of also sensing into what Jessica's been sharing in her work. Just let yourself come back. And I just really want to sort of, as you take a few moments, Jessica, sort of um, reflect on what just kind of happened in bearing witness to your work and just offering this space for our own experience, and how this sort of the imprints that are much deeper than the mind space and the thinking space, right? And this was a few minutes just between us here, also being witnessed. It's a different kind of space, but how much can happen by just offering an opportunity to truly experience what is going on. And then it's it's sort of, I feel like there's a parallel, like offering the space to see it for yourself. Oh, there is this bracing, and then just the witnessing allows, without expectation, for something to possibly shift and change. And in a sort of in a bigger or in not bigger, but in a different kind of framework, that's kind of like what happens when we're in a group together and we allow for things to be ourselves and parts of ourselves to be witnessed and held. That just that in itself holds such an immense healing power and transformative power, because and it's not that you're forcing anything forwards or even having necessarily like a goalpost in mind. Well, of course, if you're in discomfort or if you're in pain, you want to shift it, but you can't bypass it, you have to experience it. But the fact that it's being held by yourself as well as others is the potency and the power of that is so extraordinary. And also, another thing which I think is so important with that at this moment in time, in the kind of what we're all experiencing, which is so much separation and this sense that it's just about me and never mind you, I'm not accountable for anybody else's experience as long as I'm okay. And, that's, or as long as I look good or whatever it might be that the messaging is, that the more we experience this kind of connection, the more we come back to the remembrance, because really think for me it's a remembrance that everything is interconnected. We are, my suffering is your suffering. If you're suffering, I'm never going to be totally free. So yeah, so just want to, but thank you, Jessica, for being willing to share from the depth of your being, truly in such a real way. um
You're
how was that
welcome.
for you?
Thank you for your guidance. Um, yeah, I really feel that, and I think what you were describing about the being witnessing and going back to what you were saying about stepping into more authenticity in the relationship between loss and death and the challenge, and the authenticity that we're seeking and the places. It's like the group space, I think, is so important, and I feel like, to me, I feel that's where the most powerful um leaps forward in authenticity can take place, because it's it's being able to express a variety of different sides of ourselves, which includes our challenges, our wounds, our suffering, our unique pain, and recognizing often and always in the group dynamic of sharing and witnessing and being witnessed in work. We realize that the range of the things we experience are shared. We do share so much that we feel so alone in, right? And then also, but on the other side of the spectrum with that, our hopes, our dreams, our beauty, our magic, our gifts, our you know the joy and the expression of passion and play that we long to experience, which so often was also shut down in groups, right? I mean, in the classroom or on the team, the sports team, or in the ballet class or the dance class or the art class, or all these group shaping experiences that so many of us grew up having, or on the street, in the playground, or in where the backyard, or wherever we found ourselves, where our pain was shamed, our hurts were shamed, and rejected, and our joys and our authenticity and our like silliness, our most silly selves, and our most you know dreamy and ambitious magic selves were shunned in some way, were because of all the different things, right? And so these are all the things that I feel like so committed to helping liberate ourselves from. And I think that's one of the reasons that, to me, the group space is so powerful for it. So, and I know that's one of the reasons we wanted to bring this kind of forum forward, right? Hoping that we will, in the fits and starts that kind of our own lives impose upon the timing and the unfolding of this, but the continued devotion and dedication to come back and say, let's come into communities of practice. Let's learn these skills together. Let's practice these skills together and create partnerships, like you and I have created a partnership. And like, we thank you, just a moment to honor our teacher, our mentor, our guide, Robert Masters, who, really pioneered so much of what we are doing here and what we're bringing forward. You're bringing forward in the journey, which is amazing. And so many of the beautiful people in our apprenticeship are bringing forward in different ways. He's retired now from groups, made that official step back of not continuing group work. He's well into his late 70s now, and this is his time for that withdrawal, but the commitment to bring that forward, and thanking him and all of the participants in the groups we were in with him, right, for allowing us and enabling us, creating the space for us to experience that and be inspired to bring it into this way and into the journey we're creating in Portugal, this summer.
Yeah, and this is, I love, that you bring in what you just said about, like it's also about really finding our full expression, of the joy and the imagination and the playfulness, and this is also what we have the opportunity to do, is we bring in the group work and the deep work and the shadow work and the shadow play, but in our unique expressions and form, which is going to form a kind of retreat experience where we also be moving and dancing and doing meditation practices, and we'll be doing a lot of sacred ritual, because that's just kind of
swimming in the river, swimming in the river.
Yes, exactly. And we'll be immersed in Cara Creek. Is such a beautiful place for it, because you're really in the elements with the river and the mountains and the stars at night and the beautiful trees and forest, wild kind of forest. And yeah, so I really can't wait. And the invitation is open for anybody who feels called to join us. We will have an intimate group, because we want for everybody to really fully be able to do the deeper work and to be seen, and for us to have time, and for everybody to also get to know each other. So I'm excited that we can bring this forward now, that this is really the next step and what we've been hoping to work towards. So anything else on that, Jessica? You can find all the details on our respective websites. It will be in the show notes and all of that.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions, you can always sort of email us or message us via the various channels. We love chatting, as I'm sure you've realized at this point.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I interrupted you so vivaciously there with my swimming in the river, but I couldn't let the moment pass without saying, like, we are gonna get in that water, get some cleansing and get some support and joy of the beautiful magic and power of the element of water. Love it so much. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to like getting back into this rhythm with us, sharing in this space now that we are sort of in the rhythms and back in the rhythms of our lives. I'm just grateful for you, Tanja, and check out the journey. I'm so excited for you, really celebrating the birth of that offering, and the people who are participating, sending blessings to their journey.
Thank you, Jessica. And we'll drop back in with all of you sometime soon. It's a new moon, so we're holding, as we record this, we're holding the vision that it will be more consistent, but we also stay open to the mystery weaving us through. Thank you for joining us this time. We really appreciate your presence.
Yes. Bye. We appreciate your presence in this space. If you sense that friends, family, or peers would benefit from leaning in, please share.
If an episode speaks to you in a particularly meaningful way, or raises questions that you would like to share with us, we would love to hear from you. You can connect with us here on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram at at leaning_in_.
Leaning In is produced by Tanja Mikwitz and Jessica Lesty. The beautiful music you hear here is provided by Masood Ali Khan. Our sound engineer is Marley Mikwitz Montgomery.